Well, here's a question from a reader, Mike B., who asks, who determines what education should teach? Mike goes on to say, I imagine Xi Jinping has one answer, Trump has another, which might be slightly different than the one Gandhi would offer. Vladimir Putin, he writes, might have an interesting answer, but very likely different than Angela Merkel's. So, he asks again, if education is the answer, who ultimately is the one who begins the process of educating? And by the way, Zach Stein, an author who I really have come to appreciate, has this quote, if education is not the answer, then you're asking the wrong question. All roads lead to education in his mind and increasingly in mine as well, and so that's the question that Mike B. is really putting to me here. But he concludes by saying, after asking who should begin the process of educating, he says his guess is the one with the most money, but he might be a bit jaded about this process. You might be a little jaded, Mike, but let me go further. Let me go ahead and mention a few other folks who might be a better pick than Vladimir Putin or Gandhi. Maybe it should be your state governor. Maybe your state board of education. Maybe they would have a different answer. Although maybe we should look at the school board or the testing agencies. Yes, testing agencies, or maybe the curriculum dean in your district, or maybe the principal in your child's school. Right? All of these are possibilities. But the problem with all these answers, as Mike B. points out, is that everyone has an opinion on this, but none of the people that I just mentioned actually know your child. And that creates a huge problem, because if the person making decisions about what your child should learn, if they don't know your child, then they are left to assume and presume about that which your child should learn. And that's the problem. Nobody knows what your child should learn except the people closest to your child. That's my dominant theory. Which brings us now to the last three individuals who should have a dominant share of the responsibility for your child's education. These are parents, teachers, although the term teacher might need to shift, and we'll talk about that in a moment, and the learners themselves. Those are the three. This is kind of the trifecta, or the holy trinity of decision-making around education. And ideally, there would be a conversation between these three individuals to define a learning plan for your child. And that plan would be different than any other learning plan for any other child. Why? Because your child's different, right? I have 3 kids, and trust me, God has a sense of humor about making sure every child in the house is completely different than the other. Now, in this learning plan, maybe there's some overlap, right? But again, the plan is developed for your child and with your child in mind. So the analogy I like to make is one in medicine. Now, I was an administrator at a pediatric hospital for a number of years. This is back in the day when I had hair and I was young and I was pretty. I don't think I qualify for any of those anymore, but in a medical environment, your pediatrician doesn't prescribe the same medicine to all their patients, do they? Of course not. That would be medical malpractice, and they would be strung up by their thumbs. Yet educational malpractice is forced upon teachers every day. They are told what to teach, they're told when to teach it, and to whom. Yes, maybe they're given a little bit of latitude around how, but make no mistake, they do not decide what should be taught. In medicine, the physician is the expert in the room. I want you to hear this. The physician advises and coaches on the health of the child. But, and this is huge, the physician leaves the decision-making to the parent. As any parent has ever brought their child to a pediatric office, the pediatrician is asking the parent, is this going to work for you? What do you think about this? This is what I would recommend. That's the language that's being used. And this is the model that I'm advocating, that the teacher will be seen as the professional, the expert in the room, the educational expert, and they will be paid like an expert, and they will be given wide latitude around their responsibilities, just like any expert. And as that expert, that teacher will give the expert advice and guidance to the parent and the child to help them all determine what the child should learn. But the decision about what is to be learned will be left to the parent and child. Initially to the parent, until the child is old enough to begin to make judgments for themselves about what they would like to learn about. Again, this is the role of the teacher is a little different now. So this expert teacher, this expert educator role I'm describing, remains in the room to advise and coach for some relatively significant period of the child's development. But again, the decision is left to the parent and the child. And why is that? This is a question I get all the time. Why is that? Because the parent and the child are the only two individuals on the face of the earth that have a lifetime vested interest in the outcome of your child's learning. Think about it. Most of you, the vast majority of you, are going to know your parents. And your parents are going to be playing a significant role in your life for the remainder of their life, and possibly yours. That means that they care about not only how you're doing at age 10 or 15 or 20, but how you're doing at age 30, at age 40, at age 50. They're going to care about things like your mental health. They're going to care about things like how much you love to learn and how confident you are at solving a problem or getting yourself out of a jam. These are skills that your kids, that your parents are going to care about because they are going to be with your child for the remainder. And likewise, the child's going to care much more about learning, not grades. They're going to need to maintain ownership of their learning for a lifetime. And so grades don't matter when you're thinking of a lifetime of learning. The love of learning is all that matters. And remember, y'all, that the world is changing so rapidly now that whatever your children are learning, there's a good chance it's going to become obsolete at some point. As a result, they have to now be on what I call the 100-year degree plan. There is no, I got my high school degree or my college degree. No, you're constantly learning from this point on. So, Mike B., the one who begins the process of educating, it's actually three people: the parent, the child, and the educator expert. Anybody else in the room is only going to mess up the soup. Now, going a bit further, as you can imagine, the implications for this are huge. Educator training programs are going to need to change. The support given to parents, the support and development given to parents will have to change 180 degrees. And an entirely different type of assessment of progress is going to have to change for your kids. No more grades, no more failure, no more standardized approaches that everyone has to agree upon based on the age of your child. All that's going to go out of the window. But now I'm getting on my soapbox and getting ahead of myself. I hope I answered your question, Mike B., and thanks for the question. Anybody else who'd like to ask me a question about education, please send me a note on LinkedIn. My address will be up on the end of this video. And for the month of December, I hope to produce one of these videos every day. And starting in January, I'll be hosting a conversation for parents of black boys. That is going to be interesting, particularly single parents of black boys. So again, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you're interested in participating in any of what I described. But lastly, if you want to learn more about how I and others are working to change education from the bottom up, I encourage you to participate in the Global Education Movement, which is a group of yahoos from around the world who are trying to change education. Again, more information about that if you notify me on LinkedIn. So that's it for today, December 1st. Thanks for listening. I'm Matt Barnes, reminding you to pray for your kids daily and to hug on them hourly. Thanks for listening.